Hey guys, Pratima here. So almost 3 months after its initial launch in China, the OnePlus 9RT finally made its way to India a few weeks ago. Weirdly enough, it is currently exclusive to these two markets, and I am not quite sure when or if it will ever launch globally. Compared to its predecessor, the OnePlus 9R, the 9RT brings a more powerful Snapdragon 888 processor at its core. So yes, the 9RT is definitely aimed at those who don't want to compromise on performance without spending a lot of money. As for pricing, it costs 43,000 Indian rupees for the 8/128GB variant and 47,000 Indian rupees for the 12/256GB model in India, which is roughly 10% higher than what it goes for in China. I have been using the OnePlus 9RT as my primary phone for about 2 weeks now, alongside the Xiaomi 11T Pro and the Galaxy S21 FE. So I am also thinking of making some comparison videos between these devices. Do let me know in the comments if you would like to see that. Anyway, let me start the review with the things I have absolutely loved about the OnePlus 9RT, and later I'll be going through the things that might be a deal breaker for some. Okay, the first thing that's great about this phone is the performance. But it's not just because of the flagship Snapdragon 888 chipset and all the other high-end stuff to go with it. More importantly, OnePlus has optimized the thermal design on the 9RT. We all know that the OnePlus 9 Pro and even the vanilla OnePlus 9 were subject to excessive overheating issues. But with the 9RT, the company has addressed those concerns to keep things cool under the chassis. For this, there's a 59% larger vapor chamber than the one on the OnePlus 9 Pro. So curious to find out just how effective the new cooling mechanism is. Like most people, I also ran a throttling test at the phone's default out-of-the-box settings. And the 9RT CPU throttled to just 90% of its max performance in 30 minutes. While I am pretty impressed by this result, I realized that Oxygen OS now shares its code base with Oppo's ColorOS, and ColorOS by default optimizes performance for better battery and thermal efficiency. So in order to eke out the very best performance, I had to manually set the phone to the high performance mode. But even under this mode, the CPU on the 9RT throttled to just 88% of its max performance. Not bad at all. The result was similar in a 1-hour test as well. I believe winter also works as a nice chiller to keep the thermals in check, so these numbers could slightly degrade in summer. But I am pretty sure things won't be as bad as with last year's OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro. Regardless, let me also share my experience with normal day-to-day usage. Here, no matter if the high performance mode is turned on or off, you will have no trouble browsing through your social media apps or anything of that sort. To date, I have never experienced any hiccup or slowdown here, as expected from such a powerful chipset. Coupled with a 120Hz refresh rate and a default dot sampling rate of 300Hz, the whole smartphone experience on the OnePlus 9RT is really snappy. Plus, OnePlus even lets you bump the touch sampling rate to 600Hz while gaming. However, despite the 8GB RAM on my unit, I am a little shocked to see the phone suffer from memory management issues. It can handle lightweight apps and multitask between them pretty efficiently, but if they're joined by some resource-heavy apps or games, then the equation becomes entirely different and the phone has to relaunch such apps. So I hope OnePlus fixes this with a software update ASAP. In terms of gaming, you can easily play the most taxing titles like Genshin Impact at the highest of settings here. With motion blur turned off, graphics quality set to highest and 60 FPS mode turned on, the 9RT achieves a 57 FPS on average with 97% stability for the first 5 to 8 minutes or so. To compare, the Xiaomi 11T Pro that ships with the same chipset manages just 51 FPS on average with 69% stability during the same period. As you can see in this graph, both phones suffer from stutters every now and then, although the 11T Pro is comparatively less stable. On the other hand, the 9RT maintains better gameplay when dialing down the graphics preset to high. It is still prone to intermittent stutters after a while into the game, but the superior FPS stability here is quite noticeable. Likewise, the phone does not heat up beyond 42 degrees Celsius even when playing such a graphically demanding game for half an hour straight. Okay, getting to Pubg Mobile, the OnePlus 9RT can hit up to Ultra HD graphics and ultra frame rates. Under this, you can expect a smooth 40 FPS gaming experience with 100% stability. For an even smoother 60 FPS gameplay, you can lower the settings to HDR graphics and extreme frame rate, where it easily manages a 60 FPS average with 100% stability. Games like Call of Duty Mobile don't break a sweat to the OnePlus 9RT either. At its highest setting, the phone gives a stable 60 FPS gameplay. I also tried out a few 120 FPS games on this thing. Injustice 2 is well playable with a stable 120 FPS, while Critical Ops, which is also a 120 FPS ready game, is restricted to just 60 FPS here. Besides performance, the 9RT also brings a higher number of 5G bands. Last year's OnePlus 9 and 9R drew widespread criticism since those flagship tier phones supported just 1 or 2 5G bands. But this time around, the company has provided a total of 8 5G bands here. It still pales in comparison to the competition, but this definitely makes the OnePlus 9RT a little more future-proof. Okay, moving on. While people are still arguing about the ColorOS Oxygen OS merger, I don't consider it to be an absolute deal breaker until and unless Oxygen OS entirely transforms into ColorOS. And so far, I haven't come across any critical bug that would break the user experience either. But I am disappointed to see Android 11 at the heart of this 2022 semi-flagship phone, given how Android 12 has been available for months now. Plus, our unit is still on December 2021 security update, while we are almost halfway through February already. Contrary to this, the recently launched Galaxy S21 FE and the Vivo V23 Pro, which also fall under the sub 50,000 price bracket in India, ship with Android 12 out of the box. However, the good news is that the OnePlus 9RT is guaranteed to receive 3 years of major Android updates and 4 years of security patches. In terms of looks, this phone shares a similar design language with the OnePlus 9 series. I have it in the nano silver color variant that gives off a premium feeling the moment you hold it in your hands, thanks to the compact body and round edges at the back. It's also available in Hacker Black color variant, which has a matte finish and a bit of a shimmering effect at the back that looks drop dead stunning. Anyway, the company has included Gorilla Glass 5 protection on both the front and back of the phone. But I will still recommend wrapping it around a case since 9RT's glass finish makes it a tad slippery and you probably don't want to wager on this glass body either. Moreover, despite its near 200 grams weight, OnePlus has done a pretty good job of balancing the heft, so you won't struggle to carry it for a longer period. The 9RT also retains the signature OnePlus Alert slider, while the buttons here have nice tactile feedback. The haptics is also pretty good with a precise vibration that highlights keystrokes and button presses for a pleasing response. Unfortunately, there's no IP rating of any sort here, which is to be expected given how the standard OnePlus 9 skipped IP certification, except for the T-Mobile variant in the US. Okay, getting to the display, the 9RT flaunts a 6.62 inches E4 AMOLED panel with Full HD Plus resolution. As I mentioned earlier, this is a 120Hz screen with a 300Hz dot sampling rate. Most of the apps here have been optimized to make full usage of the high refresh rates, so scrolling through websites and navigating between the apps is a breeze on this thing. Then again, this is not an LTPO screen like the one on the OnePlus 9 Pro, which means that it can switch between 60 or 120 Hz only. Nevertheless, in the recommended vivid picture profile, the display reproduces vibrant colors with excellent contrast levels and is ideal for multimedia consumption. Speaking of which, you can also enjoy HDR content on OTT platforms like Netflix without any weird issues that you might encounter in cheaper phones. Plus, it is also complemented by Dolby Atmos powered stereo speaker setup, with the main speaker placed on the bottom and the earpiece acting as the secondary speaker unit. The audio quality is loud enough, and I enjoyed listening to Spotify and watching Shark Tank videos here. Then again, its soundstage is not wide enough, and you will notice slightly muffled sound output at max volumes. I'm yours if you let go. Similarly, throughout my time with the phone, I haven't had any trouble regarding outdoor visibility either. This AMOLED screen also hosts an optical in-display fingerprint sensor, which is quite fast and accurate. Still, I would have liked it better if it were positioned a bit higher. For someone with small hands like mine, this sensor position takes some getting used to. About the Wi-Fi, OnePlus claims that it has a triple antenna system, and on my usage, its reception was quite good. Plus, the call quality is also pretty decent here. Okay, OnePlus's biggest complaints in its semi-flagship phones has always been the subpar cameras, and that trend seems to be carried down to the 9RT as well. It brings a triple camera setup led by a 50-megapixel IMX766 primary sensor with OIS, which is the same sensor used on the much cheaper OnePlus Nord 2. Accompanying this is a 16-megapixel ultrawide and the gimmicky 2-megapixel macro lens. Normal daytime images from the 9RT have a boost in contrast and saturation in general. I compared its cameras against the Xiaomi 11T Pro, and as you can see, 9RT shots are noticeably heavier in contrast. While such image processing does look better in a few scenarios, photos end up looking relatively dark most of the time. On the contrary, the 11T Pro takes comparatively brighter images along with a bluish hue, whereas OnePlus has gone with a more warm color science instead. Switching to the ultra-wide lens, it's the exact opposite. Additionally, there's not much detail to talk about from either of them, and you could say that both phones are not good with wide-angle photography. When it comes to portraits, OnePlus 9RT's results are quite soft and hazy compared to the saturated and contrast-heavy and also over-sharpened images from Xiaomi. But in general, I prefer OnePlus's output because the ones from Xiaomi are just too vibrant and sharp, which does not look good on human subjects. Plus, the 11T Pro also fails to manage background exposure well in many instances. Moving on to nighttime shots, the 9RT preserves the essence of the night with maintained black levels and detail. On the other hand, the 11T Pro attempts to maintain an equal level of exposure over the whole image and lifts details in shadows. You can also shoot ultra-wide-angle nighttime images from both phones, where Xiaomi's results look somewhat muddy and with toned-down exposure, as opposed to 9RT's superior sharpness. With night mode turned on, photos have better contrast and a more balanced exposure on the OnePlus 9RT. It also performs well in terms of flare control. The narrative is the same with ultra-wide night mode as well. In terms of selfies, well, 9RT's results look ghastly with an unnatural red tint and too much softness. Alright, getting to the videography aspect, both phones can capture up to 4K 60fps videos. Here, 9RT's footages have a better dynamic range than the 11T Pro. But if you're walking, you will notice the slightest hint of jerks every now and then. Having said that, Xiaomi's 4K 60fps videos are also pretty stable, but its color science is too lackluster. Switching to the 1080p 60fps mode, I noticed OnePlus bearing better stabilization, even though the 11T Pro's videos are not that bad either. Alright, the selfie videos from the OnePlus 9RT cap out at just 1080p 30fps, which is a bummer at this price point. Also, the footages lack very good exposure control, as you can see, and the field of view is not very wide either. I have to stretch my hands like this in order to get a fuller view of myself. Apart from that, the audio quality from the built-in microphone is good. All in all, both the OnePlus 9RT and the Xiaomi 11T Pro's cameras are straight up average. And for a cheaper price, you can find better camera phones like last year's Galaxy S20 FE or the new Vivo V23 Pro. So in this regard, I believe OnePlus could have offered the OnePlus 9's camera system with Hasselblad optimization. Lastly, talking about the battery, the OnePlus 9RT has the same 4500 mAh cell as the rest of the phones in this lineup. But this non-LTPO 120Hz display and Snapdragon 888 combo means the phone only delivers an above average battery life. I was able to go from unplugging it in the morning to the end of my office hour in the evening with still some juice left. But if I had plans to go out for the night, I would need to fuel it up again. Thankfully, it supports 65-watt fast charging. Using the power adapter provided inside the box itself, it takes around 35 minutes to fully juice up the phone from 0 to 100%. Yet, unlike the one that shipped with the OnePlus 9 Pro, it's not a power delivery compatible charger. As a result, I could not use it to charge my laptops or fast charge other power delivery compliant devices. Wrapping things up, after using the OnePlus 9RT for the past few weeks, I think despite some shortcomings, it is a very good option if you're looking for a flagship experience at a cheaper price. Here you're getting a fairly premium and ergonomic design, a superb 120Hz AMOLED display, and Snapdragon 888 chipset with improved thermals. However, if OnePlus had provided a better camera setup like the one on the vanilla OnePlus 9, it would have been a terrific bargain all around. Likewise, if you look at the competition, we're soon going to see the launch of the IQOO9 in the Indian market, which should be priced quite similarly to the OnePlus 9RT. But it also brings better specs like a 10-bit display and superior cameras. The Xiaomi 11T Pro is another option that comes with a cheaper price tag and offers equivalent features. But if you want pure value, I would go with last year's IQOO7 Legend that's currently available at Amazon for an insane deal. So there you have it, guys, my take on the OnePlus 9RT. I am coming up with an in-depth comparison between this phone and the Xiaomi 11T Pro, so make sure to subscribe to us. Till then, I am Pratima and see you soon.